Today's readings are an interesting combination. I'd like to point out just one thing about the middle Pauline reading, where he talks about the end of the world. You know that we're reaching the end of the church year, so you'll see more and more notes come in about the end of the world as we move towards December. The first reading talks basically about God's love of the world, and it's part of wisdom literature. But one of the things about wisdom literature, it's really built on the whole thing of logic, and it is a lot more logical than any of the other things in the scriptures. It comes largely out of Greek and Egyptian culture. But the thing that is interesting about that reading is it states two very specific truths about why God is very attached to each person, and they're completely logical, but I think they're things we don't oftentimes think of. One thing, it says that God loves everyone because he made them, and he loves them the way they are because that is the way he made them. And I think it's important for us to remember first about ourselves, because I'm sure if you're like me, you have a neat list that you would like to see changed, and when you get to see God, you will point out the mistakes he made. You know, I know a number of things that would make me much better at who I am and what I do if these were actually followed. But there's a reason why God created me this way and not that way, and it's because he loves me. The being that I would like to be, he didn't love, but that being would be here. And that's true in every one of your lives. You are exactly the way he wanted you to be. You are as bright as he wanted you, as strong as he wanted you. Everything about you is what he wanted, because he got to do it in the first place. And that's something to understand about ourselves and also about other people around us. Everyone must learn to deal with their difficulties and their weaknesses and all these sort of things. But it isn't a matter of getting rid of them. There is a reason why they're there, because of what they do for us or what can ultimately do for the world. The second reason why God loves us is because he owns us. We are his. We had an interesting thing a couple months ago in Spreckles. One of the people had a dog, and they had a 6-foot fence in the backyard and about a 3-foot fence in the front yard, and occasionally the dog would be in the front yard. They normally kept the dog in the backyard. But if the dog was in the front yard and saw another dog in the park, the dog would leap the fence, go over and kill the dog. And that happened a couple of times to people who were walking their dogs. But it was really interesting to listen to the defense of the people who owned the dog that killed the other dogs. You know, we left the gate open. I'm sorry it was a mistake, but he isn't this kind of a dog. It's because they dealt with him, for him, he was their dog, and they dealt with him as a pet in the house. But that wasn't the way he was when he got out. It was interesting. Each incident, they had all these reasons about the thing. And the reason is, it wasn't a dog. To me, it was a dog. To the other people in town, it was a dog. But to them, it was their dog. It's a very different thing. And that's what God says about us. You and I have very objective judgments about other people. You can all thank God I'm not the judge at Last Judgment. Absolutely. I think we all have very objective judgments about everyone. But one of the things the scriptures say, you and I are not going to be judged by an objective judge. I'm going to be judged by a judge to whom I belong. When I come before him, I'm not going to be just an ordinary sinner. I'm his sinner. And that's what will save every one of us. You and I find salvation because we are his, and we're created the way he made us. The final thing I'd like you to notice is in today's gospel account, we see the tax collector go up in the tree, and as Jesus comes in, he tells the tax collector who will stay at his home. And when he gets to the home, the tax collector announces his reform as far as paying off the people he has stolen from and everything. And one of the things to understand about that reading is Jesus chose to have dinner not with a tax collector and not with a sinner. Jesus chose to have dinner with the one who would return all the money. But one of the great things about Jesus, and one of the reasons why God loves us, is he made every one of us for greatness. With our problems and our difficulties, he created us for greatness. And when he looks at every one of us, he sees that greatness. He didn't see a tax collector in the tree. He saw the guy in the tree who was going to give all the money to the poor. He ultimately saw who he would be. And that operates in every one of us. God deals with us in that way. I'd like to mention just one thing about the reading. This is a curiosity. I have no idea if it's true, but I've always wondered. This particular reading, comes in the gospel account after last Sunday's reading. And do you remember last Sunday's reading was the Pharisee who talked to God about how gracious he was and how wonderful, and the tax collector who said, Lord, be merciful to me, a sinner. Have you ever wondered whether this man might be that tax collector?